sorry it took me this long to make this video, but for a list that is as important and as big as this, I just wanted to take my time and make sure that everything is right, because if not, it's probably the end of the world. I really have to get this right. So let's talk about my 10 favorite movies of 2021. And let's start at number 10, Power of the Dog, directed by Jane Campion. Jane Campion bursted onto the scene with the piano and won a lot of critics over with that film. And once again, after a long hiatus from making feature films, she's back in the spotlight again, and the critics still very much love her. Like, these critics really do love her. They love her as much as a mother loves her child. And the award community has just taken in Jane Campion with open arms, and for a good reason, because if you weren't a fan or weren't familiar of Jane Campion before, you will after watching Power of the Dog. This is a powerfully directed film, and a lot of things about this movie, whether it be the pacing, the narrative structure of it, or the performances, must be tied together with very careful directing in order for the story to work. And it works because Jane Campion behind the camera is just such a powerful force that continues to propel the story forward in spite of just how difficult this story is to be adapted into the form of a film. And the performances here are also really good. Benedict Cumberbatch, Jesse Plemons, Kirsten Dunst, and that new guy who I don't really remember his name, but I will put his photo here. I should really be more professional next time. Yeah, all those performances are fantastic, and they all just shine under the direction of Jane Campion. At number 9 is Crypto Zoo, directed by Dash Shaw. This is Dash Shaw's follow-up feature after his last film, which is a stunning debut, My Entire High School is Sinking. That is a very bizarre film, and this film follows that tradition. It has a very wonderfully bizarre art style and a concept that is just as bizarre as the art style, and a world that is just wonderfully different from ours. But Crypto Zoo is a lot more fantastical, even more than that film. Crypto Zoo has this wonderfully bizarre art style that I'm just really happy that Dash Shaw decided to continue with, because it looks very different from any other animated film out there. And there are times when the characters in this movie would look so ugly or so grotesque that it really would not fit in with like a Disney or Pixar film. It really has to be a Dash Shaw film. I believe this guy really is one of a kind animation director, and I hope to see more of his work in the future, and more of this imaginative world building and wonderfully bizarre art style, please. Number 8 is Mitchell vs. the Machines. Yet another animated feature, but very different from Crypto Zoo. While Crypto Zoo was this wonderful, bizarre and weird type of movie, Mitchell vs. the Machines is a lot more accessible and a much more commercial film that is meant to be watched with your family. I mean, don't watch Crypto Zoo with your family if you have very young kids. It's not a film for kids. But Mitchell vs. the Machine is the perfect family experience of 2021. The best family film of the year, definitely, without a doubt. It's just so fun, so funny, so constantly entertaining, and also really heartwarming, especially near the end. And I also like how expressive all the characters are. They really remind me of just the power of cartoons to be really expressive even more than live action, and to go to the kind of extent that live action would be impossible to achieve. Unless all of your actors are Jim Carrey, then maybe you can achieve that level of expression. But otherwise, it would just be really hard to do this kind of stuff in real life. And this is a movie that completely takes advantage of its animation medium to deliver the kind of imagination that is difficult to do in live action. At number 7 is Drive My Car, directed by Ryosuke Hamaguchi. This is a very contemplative and very reflective film with very deep and profound messages. And the thing that hit me the most about this film is the writing. It's the dialogue between the characters. Because this is a film that was adapted by from a short story by Haruki Murakami, who some of you may recognize as one of the most famous and critically acclaimed authors that are working in Japan. And this film has a lot of Murakami style. You know, a lot of characters, they are like, oh, I'm so emo. Ah, look at me, I'm so emo, but aren't I sexy? You know, that kind of characters. But at the same time, his characters have a lot of depth. They have a lot of pain that they are covering up. They are very restrained and very quiet, secretive, and distant, aloof characters. And oh my god, count how many descriptive terms are in that sentence. But yeah, this is a very psychological film, similar to The Power of the Dog earlier. This is a film that's very much about the human emotion and human mind, and it has very true to life themes, and I think that it's going to relate to a lot of people. But it's definitely for the art house audience, so you know, just bear that in mind. But if you're in for something that's deep and profound, especially when it comes to the writing of the film and the dialogue, then Drive My Car is definitely your type of movie. And number 6 is The Harder They Fall, a movie that is more concerned with being cool and being awesome than anything else. I mean, this is a huge jump from Drive My Car. Drive My Car was an intelligent and a very emotional and thoughtful film. This film is cool, it's badass, and it's action-packed, and it's exciting from beginning to end. And there are so many inventive shots here from a first-time director, James Samuel. This is his first time directing a film, and I was impressed by just how inventive some of the shots in this movie look. Not to mention all of the larger-than-life characters in this movie. They are based on a cowboy folklore and a lot of cowboy legends. Like all these characters that are pulled from our mythologies, they all have a very fascinating quality, and they all are very magnetic to watch. And the only thing that are more fascinating than all these amazing larger-than-life characters are the actors that are playing them, because this is such a star-studded cast. We have Lakeith Stanfield, we have Jonathan Majors, and Idris Elba, like Zazie Beetz, and Regina King. I can go on and on. This is an amazing cast playing an amazing cast of characters, and both sides are larger than life. And number 5 is The Green Knight, directed by David Lowery, the same director who made Ghost Story. And much like Ghost Story, this is a film that belongs to a certain genre, but at the same time doesn't really conform to that genre's conventions. This is a fantasy film that works as a fantasy because you have all these fantasy elements in it, and you have an adventure going on, you have these big special effects scenes. But at the same time, the film is very character driven and is very focused on the character's emotion and his mental journey, sometimes even more so than his physical journey. And there are times in this movie where like the visuals that you see will be twisted and will be deformed as according to the mental state of the main character, which is just very interesting to be put in a film. And it's just the directing in this film and how psychological it is that I really enjoy, and you don't see much of this in fantasy films. A fantasy film that is so personal and so intimate, but at the same time so epic and so big in skill. Like this film has really good music, special effects, lighting, costume design all around. It works as a fantasy film for sure, but like a fantasy film that is filtered through the lens of an A24 film. At number 4 is Spencer, starring Kristen Stewart and directed by Pablo Larraín. This is yet another historical biopic by Pablo Larraín after his Jackie film. And this film is a very unusual type of movie, especially for a biopic, because it's filmed like a fantasy film, or at times it's filmed even like a horror movie or like a thriller. But in fact, it is a biopic, because this film isn't really concerned with most things that biopics are concerned with. It isn't concerned with historical accuracy. It isn't concerned with recreating a sense of time or a certain period. It isn't concerned with any of that. It throws all of that out the window, and it just gives you this completely crazy bonkers movie with a lot of really crazy scenes. But at the same time, that this film is very character driven. It's very much about the main character and about Kristen Stewart's performance, and it's really about how this character goes through these events. So it's a biopic that's more focused on character than history or skill or accuracy. And I just appreciated how unusual and how strange this biopic is compared to the others. And Kristen Stewart's performance is completely transformative in this movie. You just don't see the actress there anymore. She has completely transformed into the character. I really wish more people would check out this very unusual kind of film. And number 3 is Plan B. Easily the funniest film I've seen all year. Do I have to talk anymore about that? I mean, what else do you want from a comedy? You want to laugh? This movie has that. I mean, of course, Plan B and number 3 is kind of a little bit of a weird spot because technically it isn't as good as films like Spencer or Green Knight or Power of the Dog. But what it lacks in technicality, it makes up with a lot of heart, humor, and charm. And the friendship in this movie, the chemistry between the two main leads in the movie, is one of the most unforgettable friendships I've seen all year. And I very much enjoyed my time hanging out with these characters. Oh, and did I mention this is the funniest movie of the year? Because it really is very funny, and I don't want to spoil any of the jokes, so you just have to watch it for yourself. And number 2 is 9 Days, directed by Edson Oda. This is a very contemplative and very reflective film about the meaning of life. Yeah, we're going there. This film tackles some very abstract and very difficult subjects with a lot of care and with a pretty good perspective, because you have all these different characters in this movie by a lot of different character actors, and they do a good job of offering different perspectives on the meaning of life. So you don't just get one, you get a lot of different perspectives. And the ending of this movie, the conclusion of it, is also very satisfying and just a deeply profound film and a very beautiful experience, honestly. And number 1 is West Side Story, directed by Steven Spielberg. This is the best film of the year because it is as near to perfection as a film could get in 2021. Everything about this movie is just fantastic. And first of all, Steven Spielberg, at this point in his career, the guy who has made Jaws, E.T., Indiana Jones, I mean, he could just sit down in his big house and just watch the money rake in. But no, he's still out there and he's still making movies, he's taking risks, and he's trying a new genre that he has never tried before. This is his first time making a musical, but he does it with such skill and such flair that you would think that he has been doing this for ages. Seriously, he's really good at doing this. And all the actors in this movie are all around great. This movie just glues everything together so well. You know, it's such a polished film. From the characters to the writing, the directing, the dancing, the acting, the singing, everything just gels together perfectly in this perfect package that is the most wonderful cinematic experience of the year. But so those are my favorite films of 2021.